SABC News reporter Hasina Gori has been keeping a very close eye and had a rather hair-raising day yesterday out in the area, but she's here in studio with us. We grabbed her before she ran out to the story once again. Hasina, so good to have you.
Thank you.
What a day it was for you yesterday. I mean, you know, you went there. Obviously, the tensions were starting, but I mean, did you ever believe they were going to rise to the levels that they did yesterday?
I don't think we expected them to go into those specific communities that they did, as well as really go and find those illegal miners. What they're saying is that they've taken this information before to the police, identified these areas, told them the exact spots, but found that nothing's been happening, or that police would say they've closed down these operations, but then you'd go back and a few weeks later the cells were once again up. So what we saw yesterday throughout the day was going into specifically Soul City informal settlement, which they believe has become filled with these illegal miners that work here. What we've noticed is those that they have found are not those that go underground into the trenches. These are those that work above the ground in the processing part. It's also similar to the operations that we saw the police go in and do those sting operations of this week as well. So these are the people that would wash that sand that comes in and separate and amalgamate those nuggets that will then be found on the illicit trade. And what's quite interesting is there was communities that surrounded a few. Some were but vigilante, but for the whole, the community was more calling for them to take them to the police station, to take them unharmed and to try and get information to follow that trail of who exactly are they working for, because many of them quite young. The last few that we spoke to right at the end of the day at that operation didn't even know how old they were. They said they've been here for 2 months only, and kind of trying to figure out who exactly are they working for. And it seems that in this instance that the operation they were working under seems to be local people that they were working for as well.
And that's a worry, because you know, unless you find out who they're working for, you know, nobody would risk their lives to do what they're doing. I mean, obviously this is out of pure desperation. Let's talk a little bit more about them and then try and get an idea of who perhaps is behind all of this. So you're saying that they didn't know how old they are. I mean, are we talking, what do they look like to you? Are we talking children? Are we talking?
They're looking as young as 9 years of age. Some of them quite young, undeveloped yet, don't speak much of the language, of the local language here. We tried finding, and this is something we saw even in court when some of these suspects were brought in, that the magistrate got quite upset with the one cohort that was brought in, the last 5, and they were looking also quite young, but the police had put them down as 22 years of age. Some of them don't have documentation of any sort, not just in our country, but also in their home countries.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about where they come from, predominantly, I know you mentioned, we were just chatting a bit, Mozambique was one of the areas. Where else are we talking from?
Lesotho and Zimbabwe as well seems to be the areas. So SADC region, but also as far as Cameroonians. We saw that during the sting operation over the weekend, where we saw police rounding up Cameroonians as well that were working in these kind of syndicates. So it seems to be a well orchestrated, and talking around, you know, who may be in charge. Police said one of their concerns is that they do find these operations. They do, you know, either confiscate or burn the equipment that they do use. But by the next day or even the next week, these operations are up again and they're running once again, showing that this is a well-orchestrated and a well-funded syndicate that's being done here.
Yeah. The problem is the community are complaining about this, and they have been. And it's not just this week, hasn't just been this year. It has been for years. I mean, this dates back to I don't even know, 2018, 2017, 2016. And this is something that has been ongoing. This is not the only community, but this is a community that are living in fear. And they've said it on more than one occasion. And this is the result of when the community is not heard, when they keep talking and they keep talking. And then, of course, they go and take the law into their own hands.
And that's what they've been saying. They're saying that they've gone to the proper channels. They've handed multiple memorandums to police stations. They've even called on the police minister to dismantle that police unit that is currently there, saying that the police that work on that local level are being in cohorts with these syndicates as well, and also part of this clandestine activities that we're seeing. We've heard from the provincial commissioner saying that they do concede that the police may be overpowered when it comes to dealing with these groups that seem to be heavily armed as well, and understand the trenches, so they're unable to flush them out completely. However, the community said that when they were doing the illegal mining activities alone, they did not have an issue with that specifically. They left them to do what they were doing in those abandoned mine shafts. The issue comes and arises from the criminality that's now being done to that community, the terrorizing. We've heard a woman yesterday tell us how her 17-year-old daughter was raped by these, she doesn't even know how many men, and then killed. And she said that she can't even describe how that her child was killed, like a chicken, she described it. And there's been no recourse, there's no justice, there's no one been arrested. And these are the issues that they're raising. It's not necessarily what the activity they're doing, but what's resulted is that criminality, that they say they leave early in the morning or come back late at night, and on those main roads, you know you're going to be robbed. They even come into your home, you know, take your woman, take your groceries, hijack your cars. So I think that is where their frustration comes from, that police have left them, community forums have left them, and it took that rape incident, that tragic incident that happened last week to get some attention to them and finally be heard somehow.
Yeah, I mean, these are stories that you hear all the time. It's absolutely frightening. A lady that works for me lives in this area. And I mean, yesterday she was so on edge, but you know, when I was chatting to her, it was very much exactly what you're saying. They cannot put their foot out of their dwelling after hours, because they lock their door in whichever way they can, because you know if you walk on the streets there, you're going to be raped, they're going to rob you. It is a terrible area to be living in. So yeah, this is stories coming from everyone. Hasina, I want to ask you, just as you alluded to right in the beginning, who owns these mines? Who funds these operations? Who is behind all of this? Do we have clues? Has it ever gotten to a point where, you know, these guys have been found? Because this is what's fueling it.
So according to the police minister and the commissioner, they said they've had operations last year or so where they've busted some of the kingpins. However, the names of who exactly these are and who are running this, it's unsure. What the community has told us, specifically where we were yesterday, that specific area was an active mine until 2017 or 2018.
Yeah.
I spoke with people outside court who said they worked there till 2018. It was then liquidated and they were told, you know, the mine will not work anymore. However, these illegal miners would then be brought in. It's unsure whether they're then subcontracted by these companies to then work on those specific mines, or whether they are then just hijacked. So I feel like there needs to be more. Police are saying they're doing parallel investigations and parallel sting operations, both on the ground with these illegal miners, but also looking for these actual business owners, because curbing on the ground doesn't seem to be doing anything. We spoke with the community yesterday, and when we said, you know, police have arrested almost 200 illegal miners in that area since last week Friday. You know, is that going to make a dent? And they say that that number is only a drop of the amount that are currently in that, just only that area. We're not even talking outside of that area and the other mining areas that we have in Gauteng.
And Hasina, I'm going to pause you on that note, because I want to quiz you a little bit about threats that you have been hearing that could erupt in other areas as well. So just pause, let's get the headlines. Sakina's standing by to give us those. We'll continue this little conversation with Hasina, because I know she's got to get to the scene quickly. Wrapping up our conversation now with our reporter Sakina Kamwenda, with Hasina Gori. Sorry, Hasina, but just you know, focusing on the story where police are, of course, keeping a very close eye on the situation in Kagiso on Gauteng's West Rand.Scores of disgruntled residents embarked on a protest yesterday against illegal miners and undocumented foreign nationals. Now, they're accusing police of having failed them. They took matters into their own hands and demolished illegal mining operations, as well as miners' homes as well. Police say they rescued 19 illegal foreign nationals after they found them surrounded by communities in Soul City. So, I mean, Hasina, I know you're going to make your way back to Soul City, but, you know, some of the things that we've been talking about, just, you know, the questions and the unanswered questions are what you worry about all the time, because it is a matter of, yes, you've got a poor community that are fighting with all due respect, these illegal poor miners that are living in circumstances and in a situation that nobody necessarily wants to be living in. And yet, there is a puppet master on the top, and the puppet master is who needs to be caught. And yet they seem to just get away with it, and no one focuses on them. And here's where the problem lies now. Where are we with investigations? I know you spoke about that, but did anybody say anything yesterday? Is there any speculation as to who may own and operate these mines?
So the one mine we were at yesterday, they specifically told me that the owners moved to a different country, that opened up other mines in the area. It's unsure yet now who owns the specific mine. We're told by police that what these illegal mining syndicates do as well sometimes is go to the legitimate owners and terrorize them to allow them to use that facility for their processing or for different parts of their operations as well. We're also finding out that there's sometimes multiple syndicates happening on various different levels. They've also got a mine security that's involved with them sometimes, or fake security companies that come and say that they are the owners and they are, protecting this land. But also what's quite, worrying is the firearms that these syndicates or illegal miners seem to have. When we were there on Tuesday with the police at one of the copies, we were told they were looking for two suspects who were armed, and they were having a shootout with police. When police did try to come into that area, they were finally apprehended. And when their firearms were not retrieved. They could not find the firearms that they had, but they verified to police one had a piston and one had a AK-47 or a rifle. These are not even the firearm that police have in the force. They can't have come through the channels of corrupt, so-called corrupt SABC police. These are coming in from illicit channels from outside the country. The ammunition that they have as well, quite a large number. The police told us of one of the sting operations they did at a community, if I'm not mistaken, in Beckersdal. And what they found was that they had tipped off that there was a lady that would be running as a messenger to deliver this ammunition, and she would do it while she'd have a baby on her back. So she'd put the ammunition first and then put her baby over her back so that police or people won't suspect that she was carrying this. They could not find her husband at that time, but she seemed to be this messenger that was moving and delivering this ammunition. So it's quite a well orchestrated, it's a network. They're not just one person. These puppet masters have many different strings that they're pulling and ensuring that their interest right now in that mining area is really done. They ensure that they have protection, they have help and assistance. And we've told that underground, when they do go into these mines, they go for a long period of time. They're able to stay for months at times. We've done some raids where they found containers filled of food supply that would go underground. We're told that they take women with them down underground with them, children as well, each having different roles, and they've built their own little communities where they now live, which, outside of just, being unsanitary environments, is also a health risk as well, being exposed to all that chemicals, in an unregulated space for such a long time. So quite, a lot of questions, as you said, that haven't been answered as yet as to who's exactly involved, where are these coming from. And it's a question of our intelligence in the country. How well equipped is the state's intelligence on these kind of issues, and how much is the illegal mining sector worth? And if it's profitable, why is it not then being used to boost our local economy and the local people on the ground as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just want to ask you again about, we talk about these illegal miners, and we know that our borders are very porous. But I mean, you mentioned that there were some people, or there was one illegal miner from as far as Cameroon. Obviously, we know, your Zimbabweans, Mozambicans, the usual, that the Basotho, which we speak to on a regular basis. But, is it just a matter of them walking across the border, looking for opportunities and coming in here? Or is this for me, seems like a much bigger syndicate of actually finding people, bringing them into the country? And I mean, if they don't have passports, they don't even know their names, they don't know their ages, they sort of are left here and they're just working for a boss. So, what is going on in terms of how they're getting into the country? That's
what we tried asking many of them. We didn't really get a clear answer of how did they get from their country of origin into this country to work. It doesn't look like they come here and then find a job. They come to work in a specific area. Because the one yesterday who was as young as 12, who said, or told me he didn't know his age at all, or when asked, said that he was only here for 2 months. 2 months, just coming into a country, a foreign country, and finding a job would be quite difficult. So you can imagine that this is something where they brought in specifically to work in the specific areas. When we asked them what do they do as well, he was quite clear to us that he's not a zama as someone that goes underground, but what he does is now work on the surface as well in the different parts of this operation.
Hasina, I'm going to let you go now, but I know that you've had tip-offs and warnings that this could spread to other areas within Roodepoort, because what we're seeing here in Soul City and Kagiso, this is not the only place where this illegal mining is happening. There are others. Where, I don't know if you want to speak about that, or where else are we watching?
So right now what we do know is that the entire mining belt in Gauteng have similar problems. We've had a lot of abandoned mines. But what we're getting is other communities, specifically like Roodepoort, as well as Mansville and Beckersdale, that are also saying, we also have these issues. And we heard the provincial commissioner yesterday saying and calling on residents in those communities that they are aware of the issues, that they allow them the time and space to put in those task teams and go through these communities and help them as well, and not to take matters into their own hands. We've had people come to us from Riverlea as well, saying that they also have a similar problem in their community with these illegal miners as well. So it is a widespread issue, and as you said, something we've known for quite a long time. So we are looking and just keeping our eyes open on what exactly may happen today when we get there on the ground.
All right, Hasina, please take care. Take care of yourself out there, because it is a very, very scary situation. We were watching you yesterday. Great job to you and the rest of the SABC team that were covering the story, but certainly not an easy one to cover, because anything can happen at any moment. SABC News reporter Hasina Gori keeping an eye on the story and the situation in Kagiso and Gauteng's West Rand. She's going to make her way right now with a cameraman to Soul City, and we'll hopefully get a crossing from there to see what the situation is like this morning.